Welcome back, everyone. Airfix Hawker Sea Fury FB.11 148. Really, really nice kit. And I've just copied the box here. Royal Australian Navy scheme. That blue, it does look gorgeous. This is such a nice kit. If I hadn't blown my pocket money the other day, I would be very tempted to just go out and buy another one or two. Definitely to do the Royal Navy one. No complaints at all here. In this case, there's a bit of a personal connection as well. My great uncle, I think, was part of the original crew 1949 that was essentially bought by the Australian government. What they did is they just bought the carrier, the planes, which I think become 805 Squadron, and the crew was paid off from the Royal Navy. Next day become Royal Australian Navy, sailed the ship out here, and there you go. To add to that, then it became a troop carrier, unless I've really messed up, and someone can let me know in the comments. And my father was on HMAS Sydney in Vietnam, nicknamed the Vung Tau Ferry. So I've known a fair bit about Sydney over the years. And I'm talking to you from Sydney at the moment. So there you go. The Sea Fury, it's classic super prop. 1947, I think it come out. These Bristol Centaurus engines, whatever, 30,000 feet, 435 miles an hour. So you can start to see why they really gave some of those early jets a run for their money. I think the Australian Navy shot down one MiG-15 over Korea. There's still a couple of Royal Australian Navy pilots listed as missing in action from Korea in the Sea Furies. So I think that's just one of those things always to keep in mind, at least for me, when I'm doing these, that these were real historical machines, flown in this case by some incredible people. Here we are onto the engine. There's not a lot to it. I think I used Tamiya steel to do at least the indications of an engine. It's fine for what it is. Most of it you never see anyway. The actual, what would you say, assembly is very nice. Here I am just dry brushing, blurry video, but dry brushing some silver over the engine there just to give it that little bit of extra detail. But you'll see later that when it's finished, most of the engine is hidden. You really only see the ring and these outsides of the exhausts. These are powerful planes. There's the intake there, more dry brushing. Like I say, I got no complaints. The one interesting thing actually is that yellow that they used, it's almost like the zinc chromate of American planes, but it's actually a brighter yellow. I'm not exactly sure what it is or where it comes from or why. Again, let me know if you know, because that's just one of those curiosity type things. Always happy to learn more. So what I've done here is essentially I've done the engine cowling separate, and I do glue it on last. And we'll see as we go through the build here. And again, no trouble at all with the fit. I guess these new Airfix ones, they're all CAD-CAM designed, so no great issues at all. If anything, I think with the modern design process, if anything, the tolerances can become a bit too tight. Here I am coming across with some super thin just to really seal those wings. Again, no brainer. You follow the instructions on this, you'll get a really nice plane. The ailerons at an angle, because I do like to see some effect, I suppose. If you just do them at 0 degrees, it almost looks like there's nothing there sometimes. Here I'm doing what is supposedly gunmetal, but I've really copied not just the box art, but I did have a look at some heritage machines that are out there, and that gunmetal does look golden, even in grey skies. At first I thought it was a bit of an artistic thing, especially with the box art catching the sun's reflection, but it is more of a golden colour. So what I've done is I'm pre-taping a lot of areas I can get away with, so that later when I come back with the blue, all I've got to do is just take off these masked areas. Here I'm just really making sure that's sealed and squared away properly. Test fitting, so it goes together really sweet. And you can see the masking there even over the engine. There's still a bit of clean-up work to do. I always do that before the painting. The Royal Australian Navy blue, that was an interesting one. It seemed to me an intermediate one, so I took a guess and basically rolled my own there. I used half of the Mr. Colours. I'm pretty happy with how that came out. Effectively, one was too dark, one was too light. So here's the engine cowling separate. Again, lacquer paints, as I say, not for everyone, but I really, really do like them. You can see the perfect finish you can get with them. But you do need a good setup, and you can see the way I've set up my work area is with effectively the spray booth is all around. What I'm doing here is, before the canopy goes on, I need to get that blue in. So I'm coming around with the edging. In the cockpit itself, what I do is just some of that crap, I guess, the scraps of tissue paper and so on that I have around me, I wet them and mold them in to fit into the cockpit there. It's worked well for me, so give it a try if you want something different. So while I've got the blue out doing the plane itself, I do basically come back over and do anything else that I think is going to need it. It's always easy enough to touch up later on. So I can come back and do edging and so on. Effectively, it is still wet at this point, or I wouldn't say dripping wet, but you can see there's a fair bit of water. This is a bit of a delicate one, just to come in and get the back of that seat rest. So I'd put a bit of tape over. Canopy glue, you can use PVA. This was probably the only area, it's not a big problem, but it was a bit fiddly getting that canopy in. There's no locking seat for it, so if you're not careful, it can drop back inside. Here you can see that really nice finish with the lacquers. The interesting thing or technical thing about the lacquers, and especially using Mr. Surfacer, is effectively it can, as each layer goes on, it remelts itself, so that's why you get that really nice finish. But you also, as an ancillary to that, it does give you the easy reworking. I actually find lacquers far easier to use than the acrylics, such as MIG, Vallejo, and so on. And personally, I do think you get a better finish. To protect the underlying paintwork in the wheel wells themselves, which is that nice yellow, I just used the parts that come in the kit for the in-flight version. Here I'm doing the spinner. Again, you can see the really nice lacquer effect. And I was really happy with the blue colour. Again, just looking at some historical photos and looking at the heritage machines that are flying out there. So at this point, we're largely done with the bulk of the paintwork. Here I am taking off the masking. Again, I got that silly grin on my face at that point. It's always very nice to pull off that masking and see that it's all gone well. Interestingly, I think even the lacquers make masking much easier because the stuff's dry sometimes within seconds, depending on what sort of mixes and ratios you're using. It's very fast drying. So now's the time to put the cowling on, and it's definitely looking like a Sea Fury. You can see here that if I had done that too soon, suddenly I've got to muck about with reworking the paint on the exhausts and so on. So I think there's no standard rule or pattern to build any of these, and sometimes it depends on where you're at. So there we are, there's the wheelbase, and they were protected by the in-flight wheel coverings. And the close-up shows you just how nice the detail is on these new kits. The propeller itself, very nice. This has been well engineered, I have to say. You do notice a big difference. In the Harrier I did the other week, it was one of the older Airfix, and there is quite a jump up just in the quality of these newer Airfix kits. So much so that I blew a few $100 on the Airfix website the other night. So just for engineering design, you can see the propeller and spinner there, how nice that's gone together. What I'm doing here is just a little bit of extra detail work, some lead wire to add the hydraulic lines for the brakes. I'm not sure of what other wires and cables need to go in there, but that's a pretty neat little way to finish it off. What I've done is essentially just loop it round at the top. So that anchors it really solidly, and then I can pull it straight. Didn't even need to use glue here. You can come back and put a drop of super glue to really secure it, but essentially it's tied into place. So there you can see the finished result. Again, I'm happy with it, and that gnarly bit at the top and around the actual axle itself, you can't see. So yeah, I'm very happy with how that come together. You can also see that bright yellow. To be honest, I did go and do a bit of research on the color for these. It almost seems out of place, but at the end of the day, it looks super cool. So there's the kangaroo going on. Yeah, does look very, very nice. Very happy with it. For big decals like this, I'll just slip them out like that. If you're really, really particular, what you can do is cut out the clear. And yeah, arguably it's always going to give you a better effect, the clear surface film. What I do is I end up using whatever it is, the Mr. Hobby, I forget, decal softener. Except what I do is I come back 3, 4, 5 times, essentially over the last week or so. As it's sitting there, I'll come back and do a bit each day. So don't expect any of those decal softeners, Microsol or whatever, to work immediately. So you can start to see there just how good a finish you can get, but you do have to be patient with it. One of the last steps, I didn't want to heavily weather these. It makes no sense. I've never seen any of them heavily weathered up. I guess there were some beaten up off Korea in the 1950s, but just some basic exhaust soot, I suppose it's called. And there it is. Like I say, I was really, really happy with how this one come out. It's actually jumped up in pride of place. Interestingly, in that picture, you can just see how good, if you're patient with decal softener with multiple layers, I think it just dissolves any of the clear stuff away. I'm not really sure of the technicalities of it, but yeah, very, very pleased with how this come together. I was so pleased, in fact, that I actually did spend the time doing all those little decals, which I have to admit, sometimes I'll call it quits easy. So there you go. And here's almost some making of videos. I do hope you've enjoyed that. I'd highly recommend getting it. Out of interest, if you're wanting to do one of the really early Royal Australian Navy Sea Furies, you could do it with, in this case, the Royal Australian Navy decals, but do the Royal Navy paint scheme, because the very first ones were in that, what is it, two-tone, it's like a grey and pastel blue. So there you go. Don't forget to hit me up with some comments. Do definitely subscribe, because it helps me out. And there's some behind the scenes. Hope you're having a nice day. Thank you for watching again. Stay safe out there. Bye-bye.